Hey, Security Token Market. I'm back with another interview. We're joined with the godfather of Ravencoin. This is Tron Black, who's the president of the Ravencoin Foundation. Tron, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So I'm excited to talk a little bit about Ravencoin because it's maybe one of the most explosive and passionate fan bases and communities in our ecosystem. And so I think that many in the industry are thinking, what is it? Why? Where did it come from?
Yeah.
So let's dig into it today, I guess. So what got you involved in the space? Why are you passionate about the project?
So I'm involved in the crypto space early on, 2013. I saw it in 2011, ignored it. 2013, finally understood it, grabbed me, went down the rabbit hole. So I've been involved in the space. I worked for T0 for a while in 2015. Okay. But it was in 2017 when I was working for Overstock or Medici Ventures, and Patrick Byrne, CEO, kind of came in and talked about this possibility of doing this project. It was kind of the brainchild of Bruce Fenton. He was the former executive director of the Bitcoin Foundation, and to basically take kind of the most solid code that there was, like Bitcoin code, and then start the coin and then modify it to handle assets. So handle, being able to create your own tokens. And I just happened to be in the right place, right time, happen to have the right background, C++, have an MBA. I don't know, this whole space is amazing, and I just happened to be in the right place to help build it.
So you contribute a lot to the code and the development of the protocol itself.
Yeah.
So cool. And then Ravencoin has its own token, correct? Was there an ICO or how did that
So
work?
never an ICO, right? Our RVN is the token. It trades on Bittrex, Binance US, T0, Crypto App, a bunch of others, like 50 some other around the world. And we never sold any, right? We never. And this I credit Bruce Fenton for this, right? He's a stockbroker. He kind of understands the rules. We were actually launching and building it during the ICO craze, and he's like, "Hey, all this stuff is illegal securities. Everything that they're selling, right, where it kind of meets the Howey test things, he kind of knew." So he was really smart that way. So he basically said, "No, we're going to start it. We don't take any. We don't do any pre-mine. We don't do anything like that. We launch, fair launch date." So we launched it on Bitcoin's 9th birthday. Right, January 3rd, 2018, right on that day. We have a Genesis block that is from the same publication, the London Times, that talks about Bitcoin. It was actually an article on that day, and we were able to embed that into the blockchain for its Genesis block, which is super cool.
Yeah.
And then we started the mining process, told everybody, Bruce tweeted out everything, and that's how it launched. And then all Ravens just mined into existence.
So do you feel that, well, first off, let's start with, is there a fixed supply of Ravencoin?
There will be.
Is it unlimited?
There will be. Fixed supply. It works almost exactly like Bitcoin, except it runs faster. So 1 minute blocks instead of 10-minute blocks. 2 megabyte. And then also we have we started with 5,000 Raven per block instead of 50, which was Bitcoin. So there's a much larger supply. So there will be 21 billion. Right now, there's close to half that because we're about at our halvening. So half comes out the first 4 years, and then half, so it's like quarter, 8, 16, 32nd kind of thing. So we're January, I think, will be our halvening, our first halvening. Okay. So that'll cut the supply that's kind of being into the market in half, and I think that'll change some of the economics at that point. So
what is driving consumption of the Ravencoin token?
So a couple things. One, passionate fans that are just like, hey, I want to hold on to this. But also, there is when you create your own token. So that's something that's now in the platform. You can make your own token. 500 Raven is burned for that. So it doesn't go back to the miners. It's actually destroyed. Okay. So that's part of the tokenomics. So it's usually better if you have a source and a sink. The source is mining, and the sink is burning for creating your own token.
So how does that work from a tokenomics perspective if you have a fixed supply and a sink? Isn't that kind of eventually you're going to run out of tokens?
Eventually it might get more expensive, so if you want to create tokens on the Ravencoin platform, you probably wouldn't do it now. Get some now while it's cheap. We have 30,000 tokens created, and we're like maybe 3 or 4 days worth of mining destroyed. I mean, there's a lot coming into the market, and the nice thing is the price has still been pretty steady, and it's absorbing a fair amount of distribution to the miners.
Right. Interesting. So Ravencoin, if I understand correctly, the whole thesis around is that it's a purpose-built security token blockchain. Is that really the focus or no?
Definitely a tokenization platform.
Okay.
We added, so we kind of launched during the ICO heyday kind of thing, and at that point people were doing lots of illegal security offerings kind of thing. We know that now, but it was kind of like 2018, early 2018.
It was unclear.
They kind of came out and said, hey, no more of this. We're going to go, action letters or whatever, things like that. At that point, we said, all right, so to be truly compliant, and there were some rules that came out, said, hey, the problem is like with the security, you could potentially lose it, and that's a problem. So we built a different type of token. It always starts with a $, right? This one particular type of token called a restricted asset. And that one's better for securities if you need to be compliant, because you can freeze it, you can reissue it if somebody loses some, but only the issuer, only the person that created it, who's really responsible for its redemption in the end anyway, either under bankruptcy if it sells or something like that, right? So they're the company kind of behind it, saying this is a share of our company or a fraction of the art or whatever. So you can freeze it, reissue it, but you can also restrict its sending to addresses that have been KYC'd or accredited, or rather tagged. Okay. So we have tags, which is another kind of token. You get a tag and you can attach it to address. And you can say, okay, you don't put the KYC information on, right? Don't put the personally identifiable information on the chain. But if somebody has it, somebody can tag that address. The KYC's been done. This address is clean. We know it's not an Iranian terrorist or whatever. And so they tag that address. And then you tell the token, you can move to any addresses that are tagged. And so then you've got this subset of addresses that the tokens are allowed to go to.
And so, okay, walk me through what an asset issuer, right? There may be people watching that aren't quite as familiar with blockchains, and they're not putting a lot of thought into the different types of blockchains.
Yeah.
What are the maybe 2 or 3 most important features that an asset issuer should be cognizant of for the blockchain of choice that they pick if they were to use a security token?
Sure. So if you want to do security tokens, like it's literally security, meaning it hits the Howey test, there's certain things you need to do. You either need to, if you're going to sell it, you need to either sell it under an SEC exemption, which is like Reg D, which lets you sell to wealthy people, Reg S, which means people are outside the U.S., Reg CF, which is more of a crowd fund, but you have to do it within a broker-dealer. There's just certain exemptions. Otherwise, you have to do this full registration. It costs a ton of money. It's like an absurd system, but that's a personal thing. It's just crazy expensive to go like full public. But there are exemptions, and the exemptions are widening out, right? So they increased the limits on Reg CF. You can now raise, I think, $5 million. The Reg raised Reg A plus, one of them, to $75 million. So they're opening it up, but it's in the process. But for somebody who wants to sell a token that represents a share of something that's being built, you need to issue under an exemption. And then after that, Ravencoin has some tools to kind of prevent, to kind of support people who want to have a security token. There's certain things they have to be able to do, and you can use restricted assets. If you're not doing a security token, there's other things you can do, right? If you're just doing a share of art, you may not need all those tool sets. And so there's other tokens within Ravencoin you can use.
And have there been any security tokens that have been issued on Ravencoin so far?
Yeah, Tanaga Island Resort is one. It was issued under 2 exemptions, Reg S, which is people who are outside the U.S., non-U.S. citizens, and also don't have their feet on the U.S. The SEC kind of says, humans on our soil or people who aren't no citizens. Right. They kind of take both of those. But if you're not, then Reg S is fine. And then Reg D says, all right, it's a different level. You can only sell to people who are accredited. They've opened that up as well. So accredited used to be $1 million net worth, not including your primary residence, or single 200,000, expected earnings, or 300 if you're married, which is pretty high. Easier maybe for people in New York than say Iowa, just because of the disparity in like what it costs to live. Right. So it does kind of
further the divide a little bit?
It furthers the divide a little bit, or we'll call it favors people that where the money's just like more flowing, but also expenses are, but since it's just a dollar value. Anyway, long story short, they also open that up now. You can do it via education, which is awesome. A couple of like the Series 7, very hard to get. You have to be sponsored. But I think it's the Series 62. just more of an investment advisor kind of thing, that one's doable, right? For anybody. There's probably no age limit or whatever. You have to study it, and know all about a different kind of investment options and all those kind of things. You have to be basically a sophisticated investor by learning, not by having money, which is great and much better than the original system anyway.
I agree.
Yeah.
We've talked about this on the podcast, Security Token Show, many times about how it can be expanded based off of education.
Yeah, so that's fantastic. So you basically learn this stuff, take a test, boom, you're now able to kind of participate in all of these Reg D offerings.
And so is Ravencoin, the blockchain, supported by some of the more common security token issuance platforms?
So we're still working on that part. Yeah, so that's one of the things that we're trying to do. Echo, we want Vertalo to support it. So we're trying to get that pipeline. And so this happens a lot. So people come to me and say, hey, I want to do this. And I'm like, that's awesome. I said, you can create your token. And they're like, an 8-year-old can create a token on Ravencoin. You kind of say, you pick a name, how many you want, blah, blah, blah. So they can do that themselves, right? It's just that when you're talking to some guy, he's like, look, I know real estate. That's all, I'm the president of this company. I'm not going to be creating.
They just want to use an issuance platform, pick a blockchain, and just kind of
so they want to just like make a few phone calls and say, how do I do this? And so we're working on getting those. So if there's any issuance platforms out there that want me to refer them to these people that talk to me and want to tokenize, talk to me. It's pretty easy to get Ravencoin connected to your issuance platform. We'll work on that. That's all you need to do. It's all programming. It's just some programming that makes that happen. And then I'll start referring people to your issuance platform.
Great. Well, It sounds like Tron's got deal flow, but if you're an investor or an asset issuer, how can they get in touch with you or the Ravencoin community to get a better understanding of what's going on?
Yeah, so the Ravencoin community is huge. We don't really run it. I kind of point to it. So I'm the president of the Ravencoin Foundation. Ravencoin's code, right? So it runs 24/7, just works. The Ravencoin Foundation is there for these other things, monitor the ecosystem, but also if you want to email me, tron@ravencoin.foundation, I can point you into different people, give you ideas, point you at blog posts that I've written, others have written about how to do this. That's the best place to start.
Cool.
I'm also on Twitter @Tron Black, and you can DM me there, and
Fantastic. Tron, thank you for sitting down. This has been a fascinating discussion.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And appreciate your time today.
I appreciate it. Thanks.